Everyone. So I don't know if anyone's here, but I'm Anu and I will be doing the workshop today, and we're going to go do a fall landscape, and I'm actually waiting on everyone to join in, but until then I'm just going to go get set, and I will have everything. I'll have the camera aimed at my paper. I'm just going to be waiting maybe 5 more minutes, and as people begin to trickle in, I'll get started. All right, I'm going to get started in another couple of minutes. All right, sorry, I'm just having a little bit of technical difficulties. I will. Let me know if you guys are getting anything. All right, so if you're there, hello. I'm sorry for the little bit of a late start. All right, so if you're there, hello. I'm sorry for the little bit of a late start. All right. So I'm really sorry for the late start, but it's not too bad. I have my paper here on this is UArt paper and it's dark tinted. And on my left, I'm just going to show you quickly my workstation. It's not super organized right now, but one day, hopefully it will be. If you have the image, I hope you've downloaded it or you have it printed out. I really recommend not having it on a not having it on your phone as a reference image. So that, I mean, it just makes a big difference in how you are able to translate it onto paper. So now we've got, this is my workstation. So I have over here a Heilman case. It's a smaller one. And I have all these things sitting over here. They are arranged by color. And this is a box I use for my current painting stash, meaning like these are the ones that I'm going to be using for my current painting. This is not the one that I'm making right now, but this is one I'm working on simultaneously. That is the little box I have with harder pastels, and those are the ones I'm going to be using, and then I have some other pastels on the side as well. So that's what I've got, and then on this side I've got my iPad so that I have a reference image that I can use. I'm just going to angle everything properly. All right, so let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. Okay, how does this work? Yeah, that works better. All right, so there we go. That is our canvas that I'm going to be starting on, so to speak. It's not really canvas, it's paper, and it's on my easel. I really recommend having your paper mounted or on a foam core board, something like that. So I'm going to get started with painting, and we'll see where we go from there. So I'm actually just going to show the image so that we can get a better idea of how I'm going to tackle this. So this is the entire image. I should probably have had this up differently, but this is the entire image and I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw and paint this part. I think that's just so much more fascinating. I don't like that in the background, and I know I'm going to change it. So we'll see where we can go from this. And you know, when you're drawing, when you're painting, you don't have to go with exactly what you see. You can always change it around. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to go in with some purple. I just don't know why, but I always tend to go with a purple, and I'm going to go lay in some color. It's not really a purple, sorry, it's like a bright pink. I like a bright pink. This is a hard pastel. It's a new pastel that I'm using, and I'm going to be layering in the image from my reference image. And feel free to write anything on the chat if you have any questions about what I'm doing. But the first thing I'm going to do, make sure your new pastel, by the way, is cut or broken, because mine is broken. And a really big one is just not going to serve you well. So first things first, outline. Big picture always first. Here we go. Got this somewhere. And I always say this, but work on the shapes first and then figure out the details. Then we've got, I think I need to bring this in closer. Okay, made a mistake. I probably shouldn't be making mistakes, but I do want people to know that everyone makes mistakes. It's got that long arm. So then this tree branch does go roughly here. It's not super big. Ignore these. We've corrected it. And you've got a tree branch over here. I've got lots of foliage. And there's a pathway over here. I'm going to skip that pathway. I'm just going to add foliage there. I don't want the definition of the pathway over there. Feel free to, when you're painting something, figure out what does and what does not work for that image. I'm just going to go over this so I know for myself that this is foliage and it's not tree. So I've got this over here. Got some more foliage. And then we've got land all the way over there. And you know what? I am going to give it the shrubbery that is there in the background. I didn't think I would, but I am. I'm just going to make it a little bit less green. I'm going to change the color up a little bit. And we've got some foliage over here. And remember, this is just so that I know for myself what I'm going to do, and it will help color peek through as well. And one thing that I do is I move the bulldog clips here and there once in a while because they get in the way. And once I'm done, I'll go in and change that. All right, so we've got our foliage. that looks a little cray-cray. What on earth am I going to do with this? That's what I always ask myself in the middle. So it looks crazy right now, but the first things you want to do is lay in your darks. And I'm going to do that with a softer pastel. I don't necessarily want to go super dark over there. Let's go with this one. This is a very soft Terry Ludwig, and I'm going to... A really nice thing to remember is that you don't have to cover the entire surface. Sometimes you can let whatever you've done peek through. And I'm just going to use the side of this. There you go. If you can tell, there are some areas that have really dark darks, and I don't want to go super dark on them in the sense that give them no color. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give them a lot of dark, yes, but I'm going to give them a deep reddish color. And I'm going to go in with like a brownie red, kind of define that a little bit, just see what else I need to do, but I'm not going to go in and give a definition either. Yeah, I've got some foliage over here that can use some reddish browns. Foliage goes down here. And one thing to remember is that I'm using the same color over and over because I like a cohesive whole. I like things to look like they belong together. So I'm trying to give it all like that look of cohesiveness and then add in different colors as I go. All right. So for now, I'm going to go in with a harder pastel. This is another new pastel, and I'm going to do, you really can't tell much over here, but I'm going to give it some color. Don't know if you can tell from there, but it does help to have some color on there. I'm going to go in with like a really, really dark green and do that over here too. I've got some dark greens that transform to purples later. And I'm going to take a nice little deep blue and go over that. I think that for now, it helps my eye see what all I need to do on it, that I don't get stressed out thinking, oh my god, what am I going to do with the bark? And again. And if I need to later, I can always go in and add brown over this. So it really doesn't look like much right now still. So I'm going to add some browns to the bark, because I'm going to go over that with some cooler grays. Sounds crazy, but this is a Mount Vision. I'm just going to rake it very slowly and very lightly over this, because it's got some warmth. It just doesn't really show through. All right, let's see how this works over here. You see how if I don't push it completely, the brown just shows through underneath, and it becomes a lot more interesting. Darkening up the shadow again. A brown I use for skin tones a lot. It looks like a sienna. There we go. I think this looks pretty good actually. I'm gonna add some could make it look a little choppy so that it's got some variation. But it's starting to look a little bit better. So I'm going to go do that for the rest of the trees. And you don't have to cover everything. Remember that. You can make it a little bit choppy and just have fun with the shape a little bit. Not every tree is straight. There we go. And this tree has got a significant amount of darkness to it, a lot of shadow. even here, I'm not going over every part that I want to. I just want to give a little bit of that underlying color, a little bit of a way to peek through. And it's looking a lot better already. And I'm going to go in and give this one a little bit of a definition. And I really like to have something with a little bit of orange peeking through, just because it makes the blue so much more dynamic. It just makes it so much more interesting. There we go. And I'm going to go back in a little bit later. So now I'm actually going to work with the foliage. And this is a big one because foliage I find very, very tricky. But, you know, the basics still apply. I'm giving it a nice lost edge here. And I have trouble sometimes losing edges, but and I love that little bit of pink showing through, the magenta. And make these broad strokes right there. And there is a little bit of green over here as well, and I'm just going to use that as the basis for the foliage. Got some greens over here. All right, so this foliage is a little bit more receded. So what I like to do is I like to mute my greens, and the best way that I found is to mute them with purples. And wherever there is a little bit of light, because this purple is just a little bit lighter than the green, I'm just going in and adding that. And I happen to like those bursts of magenta showing through. And I'm going to go in and define that a little bit later. So wherever I see lighter green. I'm just going to go in with that. And I'm going to go back in and add different colors here too. But I just feel, and it feels really blocky, like there's just a lot of green over here. There's just a lot of foliage over here, but we can fix that. There's some wonderful things called sky holes. We're going to put them in later, but I'm going to use like a muted green and add some interest to the foliage. Got that purple over just. And we can break up that foliage later. I'm going to add sky holes, and that really, really changes everything. I'm going to grab a Sennelier pastel. It's a much richer green, and I'm going to go in and add that to the foliage right here, to the leaves. Because it's in the foreground, I want it to be much more lush in greenness and much more saturated with color. And then I'm going to add a little bit of oranges. It's like a brownish orange. You can make different strokes with your pastels as well, and I'm doing just that right here. And now that this foliage seems so much, I'm actually going to do this for my own sanity, and that is to break down the foliage a little bit. It's just too much, and it's making me feel very, very overwhelmed by the foliage. So what I find works for me is to focus on the sky a little bit and And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go in and add just a little bit of blue and make some sky holes. Because that thing does have sky holes, it just, I'm going to exaggerate them a little bit because it's just too much. Alright, here we go. This needs some sky holes too. And for that I'm going to actually add like a different blue up top here. Add in some turquoise, which is my favorite color of all time. We've got something of a sky that we can work with. And because I like sky holes too much and I just feel like this just needs to be broken up a little bit, I am going to go in and invent some sky holes that are not there. A little bit lighter as we go down. Because the sky isn't one exact color. And all of this, I'm actually going to go in and I'm going to define this a little bit more. So I'm going to go in and add a few more reds, because there are some very dark reds in here. And I'm going to use a true red. I'll just kind of contrast that with the greens. You know, one of the best things about pastels is that the colors are so saturated that you can really, I love playing with them. You can get a lot of different effects, and you know, sometimes you can make it look like an oil painting, sometimes you don't want to. It all works. This is more of a muted red. I think that that might be nice to kind of tone down the brightness over here. And let's bring some of that down over here as well, and then we can add some sky holes to it. So I'm going to break up this part because it's just too thick. There's not enough lightness to it. And over here it's got enough sky holes that it feels lighter. And because this is even more distant, I want less contrast. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did over there, except with lower contrast. Can I say I'm a kind of a fauve? I really like colors. And if you're thinking I'm repeating colors, you're right, I am. I love to repeat colors. I think give it some sky holes. Here. All right, let's bring the sky down a little bit more. It's starting to look like a nice fall landscape. Love to go for a walk in a place like this, actually. There we go. I think it needed that little bit of blue. I'm actually going to add a little bit of purple in the sky as well to kind of tie it in. I think that would be a nice addition. Make it a little bit more dynamic than just blue. You don't have to just stick with blues for skies. I like pink skies personally. All right, so now we've also got a little bit of that done. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to go ahead and finish up the reds over there and over there, and then we'll put some blues in for the lake. That's a really, really nice ultramarine kind of shade. It is an ultramarine. And I'm going to bring the colors from the sky back here. I just use that one as the basis. We can go back in and fix this later, but I'm just adding my basic values so that I know for myself what I can expect over there. Put in blocks of that red over here. And some more. And we have some brighter ones over here. There we go. Gonna put darker shade to kind of bring out those reds, because they're not just plain reds. There's like a bunch of oranges and other colors that kind of make them pop. And haphazardly place them over here to give a sense of nature. And that red is toned down by the orange over here, like this browny orange that kind of looks crazy, this landscape, doesn't it? But I mean, a fall landscape is a fall landscape. Kind of love these orangey reds against those purpley blues. Bring that in and pull that to this side as well. And use the sides of the pastel just to create texture and variation of shape. So I'm going to add a few muted greens and a little bit of purples into this area right here, because it's got some greens. That's the beauty of a fall landscape, like it's just got so many shades that work. Just add some texture and some direction to those plants over here with an edge. I'm just going to add those richer greens over here. Kind of hard to believe that nature is just, I mean, you'd think, yes, I mean, I'm exaggerating, but isn't it amazing that this is all just nature? Like, nature decided to just throw the whole palette in there together and call it a day. I'm going to use the same light here as this sky, and I want to add a little bit of interest. And add a little bit more highlight. And make it patchy. You know, it's not a perfect highlight. There are places that are lighter, there are places that are darker. There we go. And clean this up. And I'm going to add some sky holes because I just find it too stuffy in there. That just feels so much lighter, and I'm going to bring some sky holes here. I know they're not necessarily there in the reference photo, but that doesn't mean that the whole thing falls apart if I add. I think it benefits from the sky holes because it looks like, you know, trees. And see, it just looks like this light is streaming through them instead of just one giant clump of clump. Some foliage that is peeking through. And just a little bit of purple over here to kind of deepen it. I don't know why I wanted purple, but I wanted purple. Well, I put red over it anyways. And break that down. think we're actually almost done because I wanted this to be a quick sketch, something that I can use to base the rest of my, to either develop further. I mean, it's a quick hour painting. And I'm going to put in the sky holes and I could probably develop the water just a little bit more before I call it quits, but I am going to develop this. Later, but for now, this is a quick 1 minute, 1 hour, not a minute, an hour sketch that is a lovely thing that I can work with. I just love all the colors in here. I think they're really fun. I think they just have so much energy, and that would be it. I think we are done. I'm going to sign it and call it a day. I'm just going to add some. There we go. And if you guys have any questions, anything, feel free to message me, email me, and we can go from there.